April 14th, 1865. Ford's Theater. A single gunshot cracks through laughter. President Lincoln slumps forward. Now, jump 98 years ahead. November 22nd, 1963. Dealey Plaza. Another crack. President Kennedy collapses in the back seat of his motorcade. Two presidents. Two bullets. Nearly a century apart. And yet the parallels don't stop there. Here's what most videos get wrong. They rattle off a list of trivia and call it a day. But the Lincoln-Kennedy alignments run deeper, stranger, and more unsettling when you trace not just the events, but the psychology of why we cling to them. So here's your roadmap. In Section 3, we'll examine how both assassins made their escape through the same type of building, just reversed. In Section 5, we'll uncover a money trail that pushes this story from coincidence into the realm of conspiracy. And in the final minute, you'll finally understand why Garfield, another assassinated president, is forgotten while Lincoln and Kennedy remain eternal. Most videos stop at the trivia. We're going further, into the hidden pattern machine inside your brain that demands meaning where chaos might be the real answer. And what that says about us may be more disturbing than the assassinations themselves. Before we dive into the eerie parallels, context matters. Lincoln's America was torn apart. 500,000 dead in a brutal civil war. A nation gasping for unity. Kennedy's America, locked in Cold War brinkmanship. A crisis over Cuban missiles had brought the world to the nuclear brink just a year earlier. The danger was fresh. The stakes were survival. Different centuries. Identical pressure. Would the nation endure its leaders' choices? Lincoln's challenge was emancipation, whether the country could abolish slavery and remain whole. Kennedy's was civil rights, whether the country could end segregation and stay stable. Both faced a nation at boiling point, and both knew their leadership would decide survival or collapse. And now the part that still chills historians. Lincoln elected in 1860, Kennedy in 1960, exactly 100 years apart. Both assassinated on a Friday, both with their wives beside them. We don't just remember their deaths. We remember the details, the day of the week, who witnessed it, what came after, as if the details themselves were begging to be connected, whether by design or by our desperate need to find one. Remember Garfield? He inherited similar crisis conditions in 1881, but his story doesn't echo like this. Kennedy's? The echoes are about to get louder, and those patterns, they get stranger. In the next section, you'll see why both assassins escaped through the same type of building, just reversed. Booth and Oswald, two men, separated by nearly a century, whose actions changed history in a heartbeat. Booth, the 19th century actor, theatrical, almost performing his vengeance on a stage the nation watched. Oswald, Cold War enigma, shadowy and secretive, a man shaped by global ideological tension. And yet, there's a curious architectural echo in their crimes. Booth fled through a theater exit, a narrow corridor behind the audience. Oswald escaped through a warehouse behind the motorcade route. Theater to warehouse. Warehouse to theater. History running in reverse. Or just our minds desperate to find a mirror. The motives were starkly different. Booth's motive was crystal clear. Avenge the South's defeat, shouting "Sic Semper Tyrannis" as he leapt to the stage. Oswald's, murky, communist sympathizer, FBI informant, lone wolf or patsy. Even today, his why remains contested. Garfield's assassin, Charles Guiteau, escaped nowhere. He was caught immediately. No theatrical exit. No warehouse mystery. Just chaos and capture. That's why his story doesn't echo. Booth and Oswald's escapes became legend because they briefly vanished, and humans obsess over what disappears. The architectural echoes are strange enough, but the psychological ones, they're unsettling. Both Lincoln and Kennedy seemed to sense their own deaths approaching, as if fate itself was whispering warnings they couldn't escape. Lincoln, 10 days before his assassination, shared a recurring dream with his cabinet. Walking through the White House hearing sobs, he found a catafalque in the East Room. "Who is dead?" he asked. "The president," came the reply. "Killed by an assassin." Kennedy, fascinated by Lincoln's fate, often joked darkly about assassination. "If someone wants to shoot me from a window with a rifle," he said, "nobody can stop it." Advisors begged both men to increase security. Lincoln brushed off bodyguards. Kennedy insisted on open motorcades. They sensed danger. They just refused to hide from it. Humans crave patterns. We remember minute details, the day, the witnesses, the unusual coincidences because our minds insist on connections. So when Lincoln and Kennedy both expressed death premonitions, we call it supernatural. But were they psychic? Unlikely. Their premonitions were clear-eyed assessments dressed in supernatural language, survival instinct recognizing danger, not clairvoyance predicting fate. Were these premonitions supernatural? Or did both men simply grasp the enemies they'd made and the threats they faced? That question leads us into theories darker than coincidence. Financial powers, secret societies, and conspiracies historians still debate. That's next. For theories attempt to explain the impossible. Some rely on mathematics, others on money, ritual, or reality itself bending. Let's examine each, and you decide which one survives scrutiny. The numbers are uncanny. Lincoln and Kennedy born 100 years apart, 1809/1917. Elected exactly 100 years apart, 1860/1960. Both last names, 7 letters. Successors, Johnson, also a century apart. Statisticians calculate odds. But the challenge is this. You can find numerical patterns between almost any historical figures if you look hard enough. The question isn't whether patterns exist. It's whether these exceed statistical noise. Freemasonry connections spark endless debate. Lincoln had honorary ties. Kennedy's family was involved. Conspiracy theorists cite ritual symbolism, public executions as sacrifices, succession by men named Johnson, allegedly Masonic code, and societal transformations after their deaths. Skeptics note many leaders share these ties, but the ritual interpretation sees orchestrated events, not random violence. Both presidents challenged banking systems. Lincoln issued greenbacks, bypassing private banks. Kennedy signed Executive Order 1-1110 on June 4, 1963, 5 months before his assassination, allowing silver certificates independent of the Federal Reserve. Timing raises questions, but proximity alone doesn't prove causation. Both deaths coincided with moves threatening centralized financial power. These theories sound like science fiction, but they address a real puzzle. Why would history repeat such specific details? Lincoln's theater mirrored Kennedy's motorcade. Century-long cycles repeat. These ideas don't claim proof, only that the coincidences demand explanation beyond random chance. Physics, psychology, or cosmic humor? The question remains open. For theories, endless debate. But here's what matters. Why do we need these patterns to mean something? That psychological answer, more unsettling than any conspiracy, is next. We've explored the 4 theories, but here's the truth. It's not the assassinations themselves that linger in memory. It's our brains. Humans are pattern-seeking machines. We notice coincidences, exaggerate connections, and turn chaos into narrative. We remember the dramatic, the mysterious, the choreographed. Remember James Garfield from our opening? Assassinated in 1881, he lingered for 80 days before infection ended his life. Objectively more dramatic than Lincoln's instant death or Kennedy's fatal headshot. Yet he's largely forgotten. Why? Charles Goutel was caught at the scene. No theatrical escape. No vanishing acts. Garfield's death was chaotic, not choreographed. Chaos doesn't stick in memory the way patterns do. Our fascination with Lincoln and Kennedy isn't about historical importance. It's about narrative architecture. Stories that feel designed, even when they aren't, lodge in our minds. Ordinary randomness fades. Premonitions make sense under this lens. Lincoln's dream, Kennedy's morbid fascination with assassination. They're compelling because we crave pattern. Survival instincts and situational awareness masquerade as prophecy. Advisors warn them, but they ignored it. The supernatural framing isn't real. The obsession with pattern is. The coincidences numerologists, conspiracists, and time loop theorists highlight. They satisfy a psychological itch, the need to impose meaning on randomness. Ritual, money, numerology, simulation. These are just lenses to try to control the uncontrollable. April 14th, 1865. November 22nd, 1963. Two gunshots echo through time. Not because history planned it, but because our minds demand it. History isn't just about events. It's about the stories we construct. Lincoln, Kennedy, and the echoes in between reflect our brains, not the universe. And here's what's truly unsettling. If we can invent patterns this convincing from randomness, what other truths are we creating? The conspiracy isn't out there. It's in here, in the pattern-making machinery we can't turn off.